this probably led you to your first book, Trust Me Online, which was an incredible title. What year was that?
It came out, I wrote it in 2011 and it came out in 2012. And you know, what I was sort of writing about is like, okay, what is a media environment where, you know, like people can get, you know, gobs and gobs of free publicity, where sort of like people can kind of like play the heel and you know, sort of dominate the media cycle, where the media cycle can just sort of make things up and run with them. Talking about all that stuff, because as fun and interesting as it was, and relatively harmless as it was for a clothing company, I started to sort of get the sense that maybe this was not a good way to run the system by which people get their information and by which sort of cultural consciousness is created and public opinion is shaped. And so, you know, that book is weird. When it sort of came out, everyone was like, oh, this is so cool, let's do all this stuff. And there's sort of an element of that in the book, but I was also kind of writing it as a cautionary tale. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the things in the book proved to be, you know, more commonplace than we would probably like them to be now.
Well, totally. And if we look now at, you know, social media and the distortion or manipulation of news, I mean, did you invent fake news, perhaps?
I think I wrote a piece a couple years ago where it's like there is no fake news. We are fake news. Fake news is what people spread. So like, you know, like, sure, somebody makes fake news, but the problem is the mechanism of the human psyche that spreads and propagates the information. But, you know, what you could say is that pretty much everything I talked about in the book, Russia did in the 2016 election. So, and as obviously egregious as that is, I think where I get upset or shake my head is that, like, the media has known that all these things are possible for a really long time, kind of did nothing about it. So it's like I think one of the most sort of appalling examples of Russia's election interference is like something like 1,900 different Russian troll accounts were quoted in major media outlets in the 2016 election by major media outlets. And so what that is like something happens, and then somebody, like a bot or a fake person or some, you know, manipulative account says like, I'm so outraged, you know, blank should happen. And then the media, because the media is just sort of like looks for, like whenever you see this like, you know, outpouring of grief for Kobe Bryant's death, instead of calling up people and getting actual quotes from that, they're just like, what can we take from Twitter, right? And so it's like, you know, people were appalled by the Billy Bush, you know, Donald Trump comments, and then they just pull stuff. Like, what they didn't realize is that when you're sort of so transparently lazy and it's sort of how you're doing your job, and people are able to manipulate those patterns. So one of the things I did when I was marketing Trust Me I'm Lying as sort of a proof of this concept is there's a service called Help a Reporter Out, and it's basically this sort of tool for lazy journalists to find sources. It's great if you're promoting a thing, but it's bad for, like, you know, it's like, hey, this is a great efficiency. It allows us to, you know, sort of make hamburgers out of pink slime, but it's like bad if you have to eat the pink slime. You know what I mean? And so I signed up for this thing, Help Reporter Out, and I'm just like, what on earth could I possibly be quoted as an expert about? And I was like, I'll just answer every query I possibly can. And so I was quoted, you know, as an expert on boat winterization and insomnia, and, you know, like all these things. I was quoted in the New York Times as like as an expert on vinyl records, which I am not an expert on vinyl records. In fact, I learned what LP stood for reading the article you would And so like the point is like that exists, right? And that and that has existed for a long time, and people have been pointing out those things. But it's bad for business to fix those things. So it's like, look, Russia's certainly the bad guy, but what is the New York Times doing quoting random people off websites? Or what is Good Morning America doing quoting tweets from, you know, like assface27, you know, that's what media has come to. And so I think the book was sort of, this is how this works. Isn't that hilarious but also alarming? And the reaction to the book On the marketing side was people were like, I'm going to do this, and the media's reaction was sort of, that's not true, and then it has slowly sort of been proven true since.
Got it. I'm still going to put you out of my mind as the originator of fake news, being a good
I'll take it.
someone that exposed it.
Sure.
So